Hello and welcome to the Daily Neloo. Today I'm here with Dr. Stuart Kushon, my friend, celebrating his daughter's birthday. And we were hanging out in his nerd palace. And I thought I saw their wedding ketubah, but instead it's a Cognitive Bias Codex. What is that?
Okay, so cognitive biases, these are the things that you do, so ways that you're biased in terms of your action that you don't know that you're actually doing. It's like the subliminal stuff that's going on all the time.
So how does it work? I see 4 different kind of categories.
Well, these are, what's on the inner circle are a bunch of very specific heuristics or biases that you experience. And then what it does is it takes each of these groupings and breaks it out into something that you may do. And then even more broadly, like how do we deal with too much information? Or how do we deal with what we should remember? Or how do we deal with the fact that we don't have all the time in the world and we need to act fast? And how do we do with things not having enough meaning in life?
How about this one?
We project our current mindset and assumptions on the past and the future. I mean, this is actually a really
That's
big
a big one.
It's a huge one, and it actually goes to show like why a positive mindset is one of the most important things that you can have in life, just in general. But if you think about it, if you have had a friend who has suffered from depression, or particularly people who are manic depressive is a great example. This sort of person, it's like one day everything is just absolutely amazing, and everything that has happened and everything that's going to happen is absolutely amazing. And when I think about this, I think about Robin Williams, because he's like a common example of someone who we all know who is manic depressive. He's amazing, and then he just disappears and he goes like into his dark hole. Whatever your mindset is, you can, if you're having a positive mindset, you would reflect on the past and it would all have meaning, and it would all be for a reason, and it would all make sense, and it would be good because this is how you grew. Otherwise, if you have a really bad mindset, it's like, I never had the opportunities and this never worked out for me. I mean, it's a big one, that the way we feel now affects our interpretation of the past and the future.
So you find data to make your hypothesis correct?
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, we are drawn to details that confirm our own beliefs, our existing beliefs. I think that's a big one. So there's a concept called cognitive dissonance, and what cognitive dissonance is, just in layman's terms, is when you're presented with new information that contradicts long-held beliefs, right? And so I guess the basics of that is that we will take every new piece of information that we encounter, and we will try to weave that in to our understanding of the world and make it make sense, because that's the path of least resistance, right? It's not easy to view it in any other way, and so we might discard certain details about it, but we basically weave it in.
With all this subconscious behavior and decision making, how does someone go about making a positive change in their life?
This is so I got into this stuff because I read a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, and he was interviewed. It's a book about biases and heuristics, and he was interviewed and they asked him the exact same question, and what he suggested was that the way that you handle it is through checklists. And so you have to ask yourself questions like, when I'm doing something, or if I believe in an idea, you have to ask yourself, have I fallen in love with this idea? You have to ask yourself, why do I believe these sorts of things? You have to step back from what your gut reaction is, because your gut reaction is just autopilot, and so you have to take a step back, and you just have to start asking questions. And there's a lot of checklists online that you can find, especially for businesses. So if you're looking for vetting ideas in businesses in order to avoid these sorts of biases, they're out there. It's very interesting. I use it in my work.
Tell me how you apply this to work.
A common thing that you do that's really simple, it's called the 5 whys, right? And you're basically participating in what they would call active listening. When you're at work and you're chatting with people about ideas, or about like, what path are we going to take to move forward, and you'll have people that are very confident about what you should do. You basically just say, okay, well, what is the reason, or why do you believe that? It's called the 5 whys. I'm not sure exactly where that came from. I hate using the word why, because when you ask people, why are you doing such and such, they get defensive. So I normally frame it as what is it that makes you feel that way? And you ask questions like that at least 5 times, and it forces them to process what they're thinking. It forces them to go through that process of separating themselves from what they believe, what their gut feeling is, and getting down into the details of why they believe those things. And so you just constantly ask those sorts of questions, have a conversation with them, and a lot of times what that does is it draws out the critical elements of what you're doing. In some cases, you know, it's a complete turnaround. Like sometimes people are doing it because it is the path of least resistance, or sometimes they're doing it just based on information that they've heard from various sources, but they don't know what the origin of it is, or even if those sources are true, and they've not checked any of it. And so in
But
those
they already
circumstances-
adopted it.
Yeah, but they adopted
Right.
it. And we do that all the time.
Yeah.
I do it all the time too. But you just have to stop. And sometimes it's useful to have somebody ask those questions in a nice way.
You have 2 little girls. Are you teaching them about this, or how are you incorporating this into your parenting style?
I'm not really dealing with that sort of thing right now. Like with my older daughter, I think the biggest thing is that I'm trying to get her to stop worrying about the future, because she's doing some of this stuff. She believes that she knows what is going to happen in the future. She's a very smart girl.
Yeah.
And
But she's dead set on, like, this is gonna happen.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting thing, though. You know, John Milton, Paradise Lost, right, calls the devil the angel of reason, right? And there's a certain amount of badness that happens when you think you know what's going to happen, because you're living in a world where, as Jim Carrey put it in a speech, you know, there's a huge difference between a dog that is sitting right in front of you and is going to bite you, and a dog in your head that you're afraid of, right? That's not actually there ready to bite you. And with Layla, I'm just trying to get her to stop hitting people.
I think we can end there. Thank you, Dr. Kushon, for sharing this with me. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you tomorrow.